folks. It's Tales from the Jails with John G. Sutton. Do please, come on now, help, like and subscribe. Today I'm going to talk about the problems of imprisonment as highlighted by the Strangeways riot in 1990, and exactly what brought this about. Well, basically we'll edge around that, what brought it about. And if you want to leave any comments, please, down there, comments, insults, requests, all the rest of it. And of course at the end I'm going to torture you all, and we'll see if we have a riot here, should we? Some really malevolent music. Well, it ain't music, it's just me torturing a song, but I'll do it at the end. Okay, if we go back to, well, let's look at the basics here of what exactly we're doing with imprisonment. I mean, at the time of the prison riot at Strangeways, in a jail that was built to hold 970 people in the reign of Queen Victoria, Strangeways prison held over 1,600 inmates, so it's practically doubled its capacity. At one time when I was at Strangeways, we had over 2,000 inmates in there. It was so packed that we ran out of cells, and we were hosting the inmates, on the gymnasium floor, on mattresses on the floor. How sad is that? That's a complete dereliction of duty. And of course the Prison Officers Association, representing the staff, did what you'd expect the Prison Officers Association to do: nothing. Because they weren't there representing the staff, they were not only representing the management, they were in many respects a part of the management, effectively meaning that the basic grade staff were without a trade union. This I found unacceptable, and I took steps whilst I was a prison officer to actually remedy this. And of course, I mean, I was up against the system. Wasn't just up against the Prison Officers Association, I was up against the government and the Home Office, and as you might expect, I didn't succeed. But I gave them a run for the money. You can read about it in my book, Part 3 of HMP Manchester Prison Officer, about how I actually, well, it's Part 2 and Part 3 is what happened. But if you read the books, you'll find out exactly why. But what led up to the riot at Strangeways? Well, there were people being beaten up by the staff. There was incidences of inmates being brutalised in front of other inmates on the landings. One instance, his name was Morton, was taken down the block, strip searched, intimately explored, shall we say, and subsequently battered by the staff. Apparently when he came out the following day, because they didn't find anything on him, because they were searching him for drugs, didn't find anything. But when he came out the next day, with black eyes and a busted nose, that kind of, this is what's going on at Strangeways. Unfortunately for the inmates, there was a great deal of brutalising by staff at that point. It wasn't all the staff, some very good officers there, but some officers kind of took it upon themselves. They seemed to believe that they were like an avenging angel, whose dynamics were directed by the silent majority of the public, who expected prison to be a place not only for punishment, but a place of punishment. I will, in the weeks ahead, be discussing the nature and the origins of imprisonment. Because if we go back in time to the 1500s, 1600s, a long time ago, but this is what the base of it all is, you see. This is how it has evolved as time passes. There was no such thing as imprisonment as a punishment. The punishment was being flogged in public, being transported to places like Australia. In America, they used America as a prison colony at one point. Seriously. And of course, Australia is the most famous one. Thousands of people transported. Botany Bay, was it? Yeah, that they sent them to in Australia, and then they were held in forced labour camps. Where people, that was the punishment, not imprisonment. But out of that came the current prison system. And as I say, when I started in the prison system, 1st of January 1975, there were numerous members of staff there who'd been working at Strangeways since they were demobbed from the army after World War II. So there was a lot of very experienced staff, and they passed on the baton, so to speak. You know, the inmates, they get nothing. They had a sign up in the block, D1, and it said, "Stop complaining, you're all volunteers." In other words, what you're going to get down there is sweet nothing, and you can't complain about it. I mean, who would you complain to? Complain to the governor, Norman Brown, and the staff felt empowered by the fact that they'd got an old-fashioned type governor in Norman Brown, who was really a screws governor, you know, because no matter what the staff did, they couldn't do any wrong. If you told Norman Brown that an inmate had done something, that's exactly what happened. And he would administer justice as he saw fit, because in those days, the governor could actually remove remission from an inmate. So if they were offending against the good order and discipline of the establishment, then it was well within Norman Brown's power, the number one governor, to remove 7 days from their remission. So they effectively did an extra 7 days in prison. That was one of the actual tools that were used to control the inmates. And not only that, it was the brutality and violence that was meted out by certain members of staff. I say certain members of staff, not all staff. But it all came to a head on the 1st of April 1990 in the chapel. There'd been a sit-down the day before where they'd been protesting. There'd been numerous incidences where inmates had been, as I say, brutalised by the staff and then forcibly injected with Largactil or chlorpromazine by the hospital staff. And I was a member of the hospital unit, a hospital officer, and on numerous occasions I had to undertake forcible injections of inmates. That was at the direct orders of the senior medical officer or the duty medical officer, who would require you say, this man needs to be sedated, Mr. Sutton, draw up a syringe of Largactil and give it to him intramuscularly, usually in the upper outer quadrant of the right buttock. So it all came to a head on the 1st of April 1990 when they overtook the chapel, snatched the keys off a number of officers and began opening cells and smashing their way onto the roof, and the actual riot itself lasted 25 days. One of the reasons that it was extended was one of the inmates who was the spokesperson for them, shall we say, a man called Alan Lord, a big hefty guy. I believe he runs a gym in Manchester now. He volunteered to actually speak to them, the staff, with a view to negotiating the end of the riot. And when he went to speak to them, they snatched him and whipped him away to another establishment. So the remaining inmates, appalled by this breach of trust which they had mistakenly placed in the system, in the officers, they decided that they weren't coming down. So it lasted till the 25th of April. Strangeways had a strange thing on the cells, you know. All the cells didn't just have locks that you locked and shot the bolt, you know. They had other locks as well, and these were introduced during World War II. Now, in December of 1940, we're going back a long way, aren't we? But this is why they had these on the doors, you know, like a latch, yeah? They didn't lock the cell doors at night during World War II because, as I say, in December 1940, Strangeways was bombed by the Germans, who blew part of the prison apart, killing numerous prisoners and members of staff. And following that, it was decided that they would not lock the prisoners in. They would keep them in by a latch, so they were just sliding across, you know, a bolt sliding across at the top. So the cell doors were ostensibly open. So in the event of any further attacks, the doors could be swiftly unlocked by staff. And that's why they've got these sliding locks at the top of the doors. Strangeways, built in 1868, and it's still there, a big horrible blot on the landscape. At the time that the riots began, people were mentioning in the press and in the media generally that the reasons for these riots was the deplorable, archaic conditions that pertained in prisons such as Strangeways. That included slopping out, 3 to a cell, massive overcrowding, brutalising of inmates, forcible injections of psychotropic drugs such as chlorpromazine, etc. And unfortunately, public opinion swayed against the inmates after the riot dragged out for 25 days, and images of the absolute destruction of the prison were shown. But I believe it did bring about, for a period of time, a change where internal sanitation was included into all prison cells, so they were no longer required to slop out, which is the practice of defecating into a bucket and carrying it to the slops recess. That was all gone. That had changed. So that was a positive thing that came out. There were riots all over the country. Sit-downs at HMP Bristol, a riot at Dartmoor Jail, rooftop protest at HMP Puckle Church. It was generally spreading through the system like a knock-on effect. So something had to be done. But that, as we all know, that was 34 years ago. 34 years ago. Yeah, since that happened. And today what we got, the prisons are massively overcrowded. They've lost the direction. They don't seem to know what prison's using for, because they're pulling people into prison for making comments on social media such as this. I haven't had a visit yet myself, but I suppose there's time. touch wood, it doesn't happen. I don't have a tempting fate, do I? But so the purpose of imprisonment seems to have been lost along the way. And of course we have staff now the starting rate for staff, I believe, is £24,000 a year. That's the wages. Well, that's not really going to cut the mustard these days, which is why they can't recruit staff, which is why I believe that they're running the hostess system, because approximately 40% of prison officers are now female in all male prisons. And we've seen, when you look at the press on a regular basis, you'll see that some member of the hostess brigade has been hauled up before the courts for inappropriate interaction contrary to good order and discipline, and in misconduct in public office. Many of them actually find themselves behind bars. We even had one female prison officer who allowed herself to get filmed in a prison cell, getting a good seeing to. I mean, you got to think. I mean, what's going through the mind? But there you have it, and also the fact that the wages are so poor, which they are by today's standards, not good. Yeah, and you're working shifts, you're working weekends. They're finding recruiting prison officers extremely difficult, and some muppet at the Home Office decided that they would introduce the privatisation. So we've got private jails where inmates are being held for profit. That's a damn disgrace, is it not? Yes, it is. Anyway, it's that time of day. I have a little moan now about why the reasons for the Strangeways riot happened, because of the brutalising effect, and generally the staff were really provoking this. There we have it. It's a ding dong. The song dinger, folks, yeah. So all you sensitive souls, it's time to go. Are you ready? Are you sitting comfortably? Good, then I shall begin. If I can get it right. Here we are. I can't get it right, can I? Yeah. There we have it. Alright. Are we ready? Here we go. This is, I'll ring it one more time. Yeah, this is a song by Glenn Campbell. It wasn't written by Glenn Campbell, but he sung it. By the time I get to Phoenix. Are we sitting comfortably now? Stand by for action. By the time I get to Phoenix, she'll be rising. She'll find the note I left hanging on her door. She'll laugh when she reads the part that says I'm leaving, 'cause I've left that girl so many times before. By the time I make Albuquerque, she'll be working. She probably stop at lunch and give me a call, but she'll just hear that phone keep on ringing off the wall. That's all. By the time I make Oklahoma, she'll be sleeping. She'll turn softly and call my name out low, and she'll cry just to think I'd really leave her. Though time and time I tried to tell her so, she just didn't know that I would really go. Yeah, I reckon that song's had it now, don't you? It will never recover. Tales from the Jails, John G. Sutton.